Hello, greetings. We're going to be talking about what's going on in Formula One, and obviously everything kicked off when Hamilton decided to go to Ferrari in February before the season even began. So let's talk about where we are now and where all these drivers are going to go because things are getting interesting, and not least has been things like the Red Bull fiasco. I don't think it's unfair to call it as such with Christian Horner not being allegedly not being able to keep his in his pants, and everything that's gone around that, which has caused Newey to leave, which has then kicked off more speculation. So where do we stand right now, and what's actually going to happen? And what about the Angry Dutch? What are they going to do? And I call them the Angry Dutch because Jos Verstappen's a very angry man. He always has been. In fact, he's nearly been to jail for it twice. He bought his way out the first time by paying the victim undisclosed sum, which under Belgian law, if the victim then decides to take it, the court case gets dropped. And the second one, his ex accused him of trying to kill her by running her over. But then she dropped the case later on. Don't know why. Anyway, that's why he's the Angry Dutch. And I think Max can be a little bit angry as well. I've seen him when he's sim racing being very dismissive to Mr. Kvyat's child. Because remember, that's not Max's child, is it? It's Mr. Kvyat and Kelly's. Anyway, let's not go into the sordid politics and the sordid love life of Formula One drivers. Although, let's mention Lewis. Let's start with Lewis because he started it all, didn't he? So Lewis is leaving Mercedes, going to Ferrari, and he's like a kid in a candy store. I haven't seen him this happy since Nicole. Oh no, we're not going into love lives, are we? But anyway, so yeah, so Lewis started it all by saying he's going to Ferrari, and he's obviously had enough of the Mercedes as such. And Toto hasn't been able to convince him to stay, obviously. So the question then is that chucks Carlos out because Leclerc is the golden child for some reason. Although I don't think Leclerc's got that long left before he starts to be really questioned by Ferrari, because he's been there, what, 3 years? So he's either got to put up or shut up. And if he can't cope with Hamilton, then he's probably just going to be consigned to a supporting role. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, Ferrari's set in stone. We've got Leclerc and we've got Hamilton next year. And we'll see what happens there. It should be interesting. They're obviously got a car that's on the up. They've got a car that's capable. At the moment, they've got two drivers that are capable. And I'll put my cards on the table. I don't like Hamilton. He just annoys me. I think he's a bit arrogant. But I can't take away from the fact that he is a good driver, and he still has the capability of turning in a good performance. Although I think he's just given up this year. When you see what's happening, he's just totally given up. I don't think he's putting the effort in that he used to put in, and maybe with good reason. He's saving it up for Ferrari. So that will be an interesting pairing next year, and we'll see what comes out of that, because a 7-time world champion against a very effective and fast driver, but sometimes loses the rag a little. He has moderated a little bit, but we'll see what happens. It should be interesting. So that's Ferrari. They're not going anywhere. And then, let's move to Red Bull, because they've really been the talk of the steamy, haven't they? Red Bull have really been disparate. I think they're starting to come apart. It's as if they really don't have any capability of putting anything together like they used to, because even when Max goes out and does his practice sessions and things, it's the last second that everything comes together. Either that or they're just trolling us and playing us along for a laugh. I'm not quite sure. And then Checo got offered a 1 year contract and immediately came back with going, well, how about a counter offer of 2 years? And Red Bull said, no, you can have the 1 year contract or nothing. And Checo's maybe away thinking about it, going, what about maybe he's going to next say, what about I'll take the 1 year contract with an option for year two? And Red Bull will say, no, you won't be here in 2026, Checo. You're just gonna fill in until then. That's just how it's going to be. So poor Checo. I think I think this is Checo's last year. No, I'll rephrase that. This is Check. This next year's going to be Checo's last year in Red Bull, and I don't know if he's going to pick up somewhere after that. I doubt it. I doubt it. I think this could be Checo's leaving F1 after his Red Bull contract finishes. Max, on the other hand, has a contract with clauses, I believe, until 2028. Where's Max going to go? Because, and I'm not a racing driver, although I've tried in the past, but he's looking at it. If I was Max, I'd be really seriously considering maybe jumping ship. And you ask why? Well, one, I think Red Bull they've been really affected by Adrian Newey giving up the team and moving on. I think the Angry Dutch have been affected by the Christian Horner affair, and I suspect the Angry Dutch have had a hand in it as well, because there is this power struggle on in Red Bull between the Mathesitz family and the Thai businessman who owns 51% of it. So I could see I could see Max leaving. And if he had any sense, he might be thinking about going to a works team, because Red Bull won't be a works team really in 2026 when the engine rules change, because they won't have a Honda engine. The Honda engine will be in the Aston Martin. So the question is, how good is Red Bull's powertrain going to be? And reports are that it's not that great. And Max will know that. Yet Mercedes, the reports coming out of there and from other places in the grid are that the Mercedes powertrain is looking like it's going to be good. And this could be the return of, if you have the best engine, you're going to have the quickest car. And maybe this is why Max is so worried and so vocal about it, because he keeps bringing it up that, with the increase in the amount of electrical power, the only difference is really going to be the internal combustion engine. And if that internal combustion engine gives you a little bit extra, then it might be that that's the car that's going to dominate, especially when we're told the aerodynamics are going to account for up to 40% less than they do just now. So that actually means maybe it doesn't matter that Adrian Newey's leaving, because, if the aerodynamics have less and less of an effect on the car and the powertrain more and more, it's the engine that's going to count. Or is it? But maybe Max is thinking, maybe I need to be where the best engine is. And, he might consider a jump to Mercedes. Toto would have him in a heartbeat. Toto has been courting him now for what, 2, 3 years anyway. And Toto obviously goes to bed after kicking himself, saying, I wish I'd hired Max Verstappen when I could have. So the question is, will Max jump? And if he does, then that maybe leaves the door open for Carlos. Big Carlos. Why would you want to go to Red Bull? You'll get a quick car for 2025, maybe, because McLaren and Ferrari have nearly caught it just now. So you'll have a quick car in 2025. You might have a chance of a quick world championship. But then what happens in 2026? Does Red Bull go down the tubes? Or is Red Bull already sliding down into the middle of the pack? I know that sounds a crazy statement to make, but when a team starts to slide, it can go pretty quickly. And I think Red Bull are just they're at that precipice. I think they're ready to start sliding down the shale. So you never know what could happen. It might well be that that's what occurs. So Carlos needs to go to Audi. He needs to go to Sauber in 2025 and just cement his position as the team leader. And then he's got a works team in 2026 with Audi providing the engine. Now, the Audi engine might be good, it might not, but you've got the resources of the Volkswagen Group behind you. Audi are going to throw money at it, expertise, mechanics, everything until they win, much like they did in Le Mans. So just suck it up, Carlos, and go to Audi. There's no point in you staying at. There's no point in you staying at or holding out for Red Bull. Just don't. And I don't even think it would be a great move for you either, because you've been at Red Bull and you know what they're like. And especially don't go there if Max stays. Just don't do it. Go to Audi, cement yourself, and get ready. It's your best chance at a world championship and continued world championships, I think. Next, so that's us done. We've done Red Bull. Although who their second driver is going to be and or who their main drivers are going to be, I don't know. Because if Max does jump, who would take his position? It's not going to be Fernando. He's at Aston. Or is it? Yeah, he is. Fernando's at Aston and he's staying there. So who could take the place of Max Verstappen? Could it be an up-and-comer? Maybe. Could it be a Ricardo? Unlikely. Sonoda? No, I don't think Sonoda's getting the opportunity to ever get into the big seat of Red Bull. So the question is, who would fill Max's boots? And Carlos, I think, would do it, but I think it would be a bad move for him. And if Max does leave, I think if Carlos hasn't signed for Audi by then I think he will. I think he will sign for Red Bull, which I think is a mistake. But other than that, who is there that would actually take that, or who'd impress in those Red Bull seats? Especially bearing in mind that Red Bull might be on the wane. It's actually quite tricky to think who would want to be there now. I mean, you're not going to take someone like, I mean, if you're Red Bull, you're not going to take a Magnus or anything like that. So you're probably going to look at, you're probably going to look at trying to drag somebody like Sainz in. It sounds crazy, yeah. That's probably what's going to happen. If Max leaves. If Max doesn't leave, then the question's moot. It doesn't really matter. And it doesn't matter who joins him as his second driver in 2026 or whatever, because you'll always be in the shadow of Max Verstappen. So if Max does leave, though, and goes to Mercedes, then poor George, because George will be in the shadow of Max Verstappen. And, well, I say poor George, but George is a bit of a serial crasher, isn't he? I really, I think George is, and I'm going to say it, I think he's quite mediocre. I don't think he's that great a talent. I think he's okay, but I don't think he's that great a talent. Oh, I know who would go to the Red Bull. Albon. Especially if the Thai businessman has his way. Because and there was talks also about a GP in Thailand. That would work. Thai businessman, Red Bull, Albon, racing Thai. Yeah, that could happen. Definitely. Regardless of that, then, where do we go now? We go to McLaren, Lando, and Piastri. Yeah, I think they're set. I think they're okay. I think they're going to keep going. I don't see any reason for them to change. And I think they like the team they're in. McLaren seems to be going in the right direction. It doesn't seem to be making any bad moves. It's on the up. Yeah, stick with McLaren. Lando and Piastri still going to be there. So who's next? Who's next if we work down the teams? Aston or Aston Martin. So we've got Fernando in the hot seat, and we have the boss's son in seat two. And you know what, Lawrence Stroll, I know you're not listening, but you need to get rid. You need to get rid if you want to be a serious contender because Lance just doesn't cut the mustard. He's just rubbish. Okay, that's maybe a bit unfair, but he's not great. He's not world championship material. He's nothing compared to Fernando. He really needs to be out of Formula One. He's not bringing any benefit to the party. He wouldn't even no, he just doesn't benefit the party at all. So you need to get rid of him and 2026 it's going to be a works team with Honda as the engine supplier. It's a shoe in. It's a shoe in for Yuki Tsunoda to be in there. And Yuki is a Honda driver. It was Honda that got him into Red Bull, or Toro Rosso as it was then. And it's Honda that's going to get him into Aston Martin, I think. I think maybe Aramco and Honda need to start flexing big muscles and say to Lawrence, look, change it or we're out. Yeah, because you're not going to do it with Lance. He's actually a liability. I mean, he ran it. Well, he didn't. It wasn't his fault, I suppose, that he ran into Fernando in the last race because Hamilton did come down the inside as if he just didn't have a care in the world, which he probably doesn't. But yeah, so yeah, but Lance is a bit of a liability. He's ran into his teammate before. His attack on Ricardo at China did him no favours whatsoever. Why would you even behave like that? It was so bad. Just get rid of Lance. I know there's a lot of people out there that like him, but no. He's just no use. He's no good for the sport. He's no good for the team. It's no good for a championship or a constructors championship, and it's probably not doing his family relationship any good either because he's awful. Go play tennis, Lance. Go and try your hand at tennis because you've failed as a Formula One driver, mate. You have failed. Moving on. Who then? The next team after McLaren, after Aston Martin, is going to be whom? Alpine? Oh, Alpine. Now, works team, so 2026 might show some promise for them if they get their engine right. And you've got the resources of Renault in there. If they hang about and they keep going at it, there's a good chance that they could come up with something. But they're not going to have Ocon and Gasly. I think at least one of them is out for next year. One of them's going to jump ship. There's talk. I think there's talk already of Ocon going to either Haas or Sauber if Carlos doesn't take the seat. So I think certainly one of them is not going to be there next year. Probably with good reason because Alpine have just not got it together. They really need to get a grip if they want to continue to attract drivers. So I think they're going to end up. If they end up with someone like a Schumacher or not an Antonelli, because he'll probably go to Williams next year. So who could they have? They could have. You wouldn't want a Magnus. I mean, it could be Kevin Magnussen, no. Hulkenberg or Bottas. Bottas should be at Aston Martin, though, shouldn't he? He'd be a good backup for Fernando. But Yuki will be there. Yuki will be there. So maybe Bottas. I think Bottas is a bit of an underrated driver. And Bottas is loving F1. He's loving the Aussie lifestyle that he's kind of adopted with his mullet and his ute. But yeah, I think Bottas could be a good choice for Alpine if they lose one of their drivers because Bottas he's lost the Sauber seat, has it? Well, I think he's lost the Sauber seat. So yeah, Bottas for Alpine, I say. Then we've got Sauber, who obviously are hanging out for they're hanging out for Carlos, but they won't wait forever. So if they don't, then they're talking about. I think they're talking about who were they talking about? They're talking about, well, they've got Hulkenberg, and they're talking about either Sonoda, which I don't think Honda wants their driver to go to Audi. So we'll see what happens there. But no. So if they don't get Sonoda, they don't get Carlos. Who would they get? Gasly, Ocon, something like that. Yeah, yeah, it'd be one of those two. I would say Bottas, maybe. No, no, they're not taking Bottas. Bottas is already there. Yeah, Ocon or Gasly, I would say, for the second seat if Carlos doesn't take it. Haas, Haas need they need an experienced driver to replace Hulkenberg, and they probably want to take on a rookie. Are they going to take on Behrman? Ferrari supplying the engine, probably. I think Behrman might be in the Haas in 2025 with possibly, possibly someone like Ocon or Gasly. Yeah, probably Ocon. That leaves Williams with Antonelli. They won't have Sargent. So it'll be Antonelli and either Gasly or Albon stays if Red Bull don't move. Yeah, there you go. It's a kind of desperate and wild speculation for the silly season. We'll see what happens. But it's not going to be an easy one to work out at this moment. We need a couple of more changes and then we should be able to nail it down and see what's going to happen. So this is Thursday, which would normally be practice day for Monaco, but it's not. Monaco's changed. We've now got it on a Friday, like a regular Grand Prix weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday instead of Thursday, gap, Saturday, Sunday. Interesting. Enjoy. Catch you on the other side of Monaco. Bye.